You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hard.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
Today we are going to be talking about something that's been really popular. It's a documentary called An American Nightmare. And this was kind of that quote unquote Gone Girl case where it was believed there was a couple involved where there were a lot of different elements, a lot of things that went wrong. A lot of things that were not believed, and how this ended up turning out. If you've been following, you know that it's definitely a different end result than what you'd probably be expecting. And so we thought we'd talk about that and some of the mental health aspects of being believed or not being believed as a victim, and why social media plays an important part of some of this going into it, as well as public opinion, and what the police investigate versus what they don't based on possible biases or, just what they feel has happened. So I think I really liked watching this documentary. I like true crime. I love true crime, actually. So to me, it was really, I had known about this case, but to see the documentary and to see the main characters, the couple, Denise Huskins and her now husband's name,
I was going to say Andy, but I don't think that's right.
I was thinking Adam or John.
Erin.
Okay. We knew it was something with an A. Erin, they went through hell. They really did in this story. This was something that was perpetrated on them, and then to even be believed was a lot. So if you have not watched, this will certainly be, as we often say, this will contain spoiler alerts.
Yes.
So be aware of that.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're probably watching this because you are interested, or you want to watch it, or you just want to hear about some discussion about it. But what were your first impressions when you first started watching this documentary?
I think I probably was on the fence of thinking that the two of them made it up and it was just a ridiculous scam for money or something. I had no idea what the final outcome was going to be. And I have to say, I did not believe her at first. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, it's really confusing because it starts out with these, this couple that they've been together for, actually, they hadn't been together too long.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I think like a year or so, and they were living together, and Erin had just broken up with another person. I believe her name was it Andrea or Melissa? I don't know, but he had just broken up with someone, and he had been seeing her while he was seeing Denise. So they were a little bit rocky at this point. There was kind of some of that back and forth. There's already kind of some turmoil there. There's already some drama. But then, one night they are awoken to flashing lights and people who are in their house. This is Denise and Erin. And they are, I think, like blindfolded. They're told all these crazy things. They learn that these people are all in wetsuits, that they're on like some mission.
Yeah.
It just sounds really bizarre.
Yeah. It does sound like everything is so over the top. It's like, okay, did they get this from Mission Impossible? Like, what is
they're going to escape through the sewers. Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems really so ridiculous that nothing about it seems real.
No, it doesn't. It sounds really crazy. And there's all these extra details that you're just like, why? That doesn't make any sense if these people don't have any ties. And by the way, Denise and Erin are both like, I think they're both PhD level physical therapists, so they both have PhDs in like physical therapy. So they're both
smart,
very, highly educated, successful, no issues with the law, nothing. They inject both of them with drugs. They tell Erin, like, don't call the police, don't say this, don't say that. He ends up passing out. And then when he wakes up, Denise is gone. They've taken her. He realizes there's like a camera on him watching him. So he doesn't really know what to do, because I believe they said something like, if you involve the police, we're going to harm her or something. So he's like, what do I do? And like so much time has passed because he was drugged. So there's just a lot of really like, the timeline is really like, wow, he didn't call anyone, but they, then there's the contextual factor of they were loaded with drugs and,
Hmm. Yeah,
so
he was probably passed out or unable to because he probably couldn't comprehend what was happening for hours.
yeah, no, he passed out. Yeah. He woke up and it was like, I don't even know how many hours later, but and then he had a camera on him. So he was like, well, if I call the police,
Hmm.
and I guess he had to like stay within a certain area that they had like demarcated off. And it was just a crazy tale that it
Hmm.
sounded like it came from like almost like an hallucinated event. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
it was wild. And so when he finally did call the police, because I think he just thought, well, I probably should. He just kind of made that decision. They had a hard time believing it because it
Hmm.
does sound kind of out there.
Hmm.
And let's face it, it does sound, I think most of us would probably be like, what did these people smoke? Or what did they take,
Right.
during this? Like, did they just kind of, I don't know. And that was kind of what I thought. I was like, oh, wow. Like I had heard the story, but I was like, oh, maybe they found out some different details or something when I was watching the documentary. But the police did not really investigate it. They
No.
didn't try to, gather any information. They didn't collect much from the house. They kind of from the start believed this was just something made up, it's one thing for public opinion, but it's another thing for police that's their job to investigate
Hmm.
it.
Yeah. And it must have been just even as the person who called the police thinking that they're going to help you, it must have made Erin feel even more helpless. Like, here, my girlfriend's gone. She really is gone. Can you help me?
Yeah, and they started to suspect him. They thought he had did something. They were grilling him. They were like, "Come on, man. Like, what are you doing? What'd you do with her?" And he was like, "I don't know." And it sounds like every other interrogation you've ever heard before they crack and are finally like, "All right, I, shoved her
Yeah.
body here or,
Yeah.
threw her in a lake," kind of thing.
There's no scuba divers. It was just me trying to make.
Yeah, it really is a crazy tale. And in the meantime, Denise was kidnapped. She was blindfolded. She's being drugged repeatedly. She's being told these like crazy things like, oh, the bosses need us to, we have to record us sleeping together. It has to look consensual. And so she was raped quite a few times because she obviously had no say in this.
Yeah.
And, it was strange because the male that was with her seemed to have it was he almost seemed to kind of he was trying to give the impression that he like actually cared or like he was kind of trying to soften the blow and he wasn't really in control of this, but I mean he was still he was a part of kidnapping and raping. So I mean
Yeah.
it really was
Yeah,
not,
he almost, he tried to do, like, he tried to make it seem like he was more compassionate and that it wasn't his fault. But I don't know, I think we find out, like, he was pretty much not only the person doing it, but he was the boss. He was in charge of it all.
Oh, he was. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Oh.
I think they reveal it, like, there really wasn't anybody else, it was just him.
Oh, because they had said they heard other voices and stuff like that.
And it
So I don't
might
know
have
if that
been
was
it
maybe
might have been one
something.
it might have been one other person, but I remember either reading it or maybe I'm crazy, but I do remember, like, he was pretty much the main person.
Oh, okay. So and actually, we don't really know his motive, but we do know that after this was all reported, he did let Denise go, and they have footage of her being let go, and it just looks like she's casually getting out of a car and walking towards her apartment. She's not like hysterical. She's not like all bruised up. And so that just gives even more kind of, I think, fuel to the belief in the police's eyes that nothing's really happening there.
Mhm. Yeah, because then they
Or
start
nothing
wondering,
happens.
because they say, like, well, why would they just let her walk home? Why
Yeah.
wasn't she screaming? Why isn't she, like, dirty or coming through the woods or whatever? It just, so for that, it also made them not believe her even more.
Yeah. And I mean that what they, first off, everybody might react differently. Denise is like I think she's a very level-headed, very stoic person. Like that's I think that may just be her personality. And she's also had past history of sexual assault which may be kind of, maybe she just kind of went into like a shocked state, and maybe that's how she presented, So there's a
Right.
lot of different factors that could have happened. Maybe she was just overly relieved or was still not sure what was going on. Maybe she was still drugged, whatever it was. But they had a hard time believing her, and it took her a little bit to realize, oh, wait, they're not questioning me to help me. When she finally, when she was able to talk to the police, they're questioning me because they think I made this up or I did this.
Yeah.
And then the police ended up having a conference basically saying, we're not investigating anymore. We believe that this has been a waste of police resources. So basically saying these people did it and, not even investigating that much on that end.
Yeah. So we're not going to investigate, and we really feel like you're liars, and we're going to put it in all the papers and everywhere and do a news. Didn't the chief or someone do like a news broadcast too of basically saying the two of them were lying?
Yeah, that was the news conference. They were they said, we're not going to investigate this anymore. We feel Denise Huskins has wasted our resources, so that's like that's saying like she's lying, and this has all been a ruse or whatever. And they just said it so confidently. And it was just, imagine that, just having this awful, weird experience where you don't know why it's happened. And then to have that broadcast and everybody to feel like you just made something up. And I mean, I don't even know, like it's, victim blaming on top of victim blaming and shaming.
Yeah. And just feeling like, okay, well, these two must be attention seeking, and not even realizing that not everyone is looking for attention or looking for the spotlight. They actually truly had something traumatic happen to them and were seeking help.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic because it stayed that way for quite a while until they were going to charge. I think they were going to charge them with something, which is, again, adding even more salt to the wound. But they were going to charge Denise and Erin with salt, like for, falsifying a report and like wasting police resources, whatever those charges are. And her kidnapper, the main male who was, thought he was so nice and caring towards her, he was so mad that I don't know if it was because she was getting blamed or he wasn't getting credit for it, whatever it was. He wrote to the police station and said, this was not her. And like basically convinced them, hey, there's someone else that did this, which I think is so odd. That's what it took, that he could not handle not having credit or her being blamed or whatever it was in his mind, that, no, we did this. And that's what convinced the police, or that was like the evidence that stopped them from kind of saying, oh, wait, there might be something else here. Like the criminal had to come forward.
Yeah.
That's really bizarre to me.
Which is completely bizarre. And it does make you wonder what compelled him to write in or to call in or whatever he did. And I'm sure it has something to do with his ego wasn't being stroked or, what other tendencies. But it's very bizarre that they would not believe the victim, but they're going to listen to the person that committed the crimes as the person of honor and truth.
Yeah. And that it's very rare a criminal will come forward and fight and say, hey, this actually did happen. Like, he could have gotten away with this. And I'm not at all complimenting this guy. I'm just saying, what the hell is his motive in doing that? And why did it take that much for the police to be like, oh, an actual crime happened? Like that's so bizarre. It's so weird to me.
It really is. It's really bizarre. And it's like you wonder, of course, we don't know, but maybe he did want to get caught. Maybe,
maybe in his like sick, twisted way, he thought he like cared about Denise, and I'm not saying he did, but maybe in a way he thought this was, or maybe this is just, I don't know, whatever he was thinking. He's a twisted person, obviously. He's got he's got a lot of issues, whatever it was. It's just, that's pretty much never happens.
Right.
And this was happening over years. This didn't just all happen one after the next. So she had to live with this thinking like, okay, I've been traumatized and nobody believes me and this is dragging on. And then it took the criminal writing in, which to stop that.
Yeah. You can't make this stuff up. And that's why even again, the documentary felt more like a movie than it did a documentary. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like any of this really could happen. And I know they kept comparing it to the book and the movie Gone Girl, because it was very, and that's also why the police weren't believing, because it just came out, a year or so earlier, or 6 months. It was right around the same time. And it did feel very much the same of like, oh, here's someone disappeared. It doesn't make any, it can't be real. So it is just, the whole thing is just very bizarre that the kidnapper would then try to not become the hero, but become the person to say, hey, this is what really happened. Try to help justice, I guess. I don't know.
And that's how he got himself caught. I think they were able to trace back like some DNA or something, and they caught him. Like he got himself caught. Yeah. And so for whatever reason, I mean, I think there's still some stuff that's not quite cleared up, like as in were there, was this some big mission, or was this just some big delusion from this guy that was just, I don't know. But another thing that was really kind of crazy, if you can imagine something just still being crazy in this case, is that this apparently was meant for Erin's ex-girlfriend, the one that he had kind of sort of stepped out on Denise with a little bit. And they had even said that on that first day when they went in there, the kidnappers, whatever, had said, this is for so-and-so, whatever the girl's name is, the ex's name is. And they tried to say, hey, she doesn't live here anymore. And they were like, well, we got to go through with it. So this was all meant for his ex. This wasn't even meant for what, who knows what anything was meant for. So I don't know. It was just strange. And I know the girlfriend was questioned. The ex-girlfriend was questioned. I can't remember if her name was Andrea or Melissa, or I don't know why I'm thinking Andrea or Melissa, but she was like, I really don't know why. To me personally, this is my own personal opinion. When they were questioning her, I thought she was definitely hiding something. Like she did seem to know something. That was just the way I felt, but I don't know. I mean, who knows what the heck it was.
Could just be that, she's wondered why is she being roped in it, or she could be part of it, but it's just,
Yeah. Hey. To me, it felt like she was kind of an iffy character. I don't know. I didn't really trust what she had to say, but I mean, this is certainly, being able to find out that, oh, this did happen. This person had to turn himself in for the police to say, hey, a crime happened. And don't you dare blame Denise or whatever.
Yeah.
I
just did a Google search. I guess the guy is in jail for like 40 years for the kidnapping.
Oh, so he's already been sentenced?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anyone else that was implicated at all? Or
no, it just says him.
Okay.
40 years.
Because I know they were kind of wondering that, but that's going to be scary for Denise and Erin though, too. What if it was other people involved and they're still out there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what? I don't know, but it just is so insane to me. And so I just thought, besides it being a crazy story, mental health wise, not being believed as a victim, I think has just done irreparable damage.
Right.
I think, again, Denise I would have reacted horribly.
Yeah.
I would have just been overreacted, but.
Oh, yeah. I'd probably be just shaken in a corner, not able to really communicate.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I guess we don't really know.
Yeah,
but
you don't know your resilience and honestly how you would handle. I mean, like a lot of people have, like when we're put in different situations, sometimes we really show up differently than we envision we would. They say our fight or flight, or just even how you handle any sort of trauma or any experience might really be different than what you envision. And I hope none of us ever have to experience anything anywhere, even a sliver like that.
Yeah. Anywhere near it. Yeah. And I mean, I guess now they've been able to, I think they won a lawsuit against, which
the city, the police station or something, or.
Yeah. And they got a payout, which they at least deserved. Because, I mean, their names were tarnished. I mean, even if people are now seeing, oh, there was something that happened, there's still always a question, right?
Yeah.
And they still have the trauma. They're married now. They have like a couple of kids, I believe, and look like they're doing well, but this is something that's with them for the rest of their lives. And and it really kind of, got us questioning about, because of the Gone Girl being out that year, did they just kind of go into that thinking that, oh, this must be some copycat and this sounds too fantastical and we just don't really believe it. And so we're just not going to investigate it. Of course, other cases are definitely brought up, even if they don't have the weird circumstances. If there's no proof, it's a huge problem to be victimized on top of crime that you've experienced that has victimized you. You know,
and that happens. Unfortunately, that happens so often, you know, to people like from different things where they feel like they're not being heard. You know, when you know you read about it and you hear about it. So that's, again, it's pretty amazing that Denise was able to say, like, no, she kept her cool. Like, no, this is my truth. This is the truth. I'm going to not be bullied or be convinced, you know, have them convince me otherwise of what the truth is.
Yeah. She's very strong resilience for sure. And I mean, and then, you know, there are other cases, and this was after all of this. I think this had happened in 2012. There's another case, the Sherry Papini case that happened in 2015, 2016, that was later, where this woman, she actually did fake her own kidnapping. She completely made it up. She went with an ex-boyfriend, and there were, I mean, the officers were wanting to help. They did believe her at first. It was only when things started to not line up that they were like, wait a minute, and they, you know, investigated it. But there certainly are cases where people may fake things, you know, but that makes it a lot harder for people who actually have experienced trauma to, you know, get some of these cases believed. And, you know, Sherry Papini could go on and on. That could be a whole different episode. She's got a lot of mental health issues, but there's just a lot that she's had from a very young age, so they could see. But it really is, I think, you know, really tough. And I think our roles as mental health practitioners, you know, it is to believe and to validate and to be aware, right? We're not here to say, oh, I don't think that happened, right? You know, unless there's like something people are not facing up to themselves and we're there to kind of challenge that a little bit. We're not here to question if a crime happened or not. You know, if somebody like Denise Huskins had come to you, you know, we would listen, we would validate, we would say that, you know, would have been really hard. Even if it is something that's very fantastical, like we would take on, you know, that role and to say, okay, how can we get you support? You know, but it sounds like, I mean, just her being able to even get justice in this case was a long, insane, and awful path.
Yeah. And then you have to think too for, you know, having to relive that and keep retelling it, and until finally somebody was like, okay, let's, you know, we believe you. Or
yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think this makes this difficult for people to speak up, right? Because they hear about these stories, or they know someone, or they just inherently understand how some people are not believed. You have to tell this story over and over again. You're reliving it. You're already hurting from this. You're traumatized from this. Going through this is another trauma to just try and prove that it happened. That's overload.
Yeah. It's very re-traumatizing. And, you know, I can't imagine how traumatic it would be.
Yeah, which is why I think sometimes, you know, people don't understand. Some people may not understand people not reporting stuff like this happening. If they were like kids, or maybe not even, just years later, they might report it because, well, they may not realize it was wrong at the time. They may have blocked it out, or they may just realize no one's going to believe me. But, you know, trauma will change you and will, you know, have you wanting to seek out, you know, some sort of resolution or some sort of processing. And so over the years, you might decide, I do need to talk about this, whether or not I'm believed. And some people are bewildered, like, why didn't you say something back then? This is an extreme example, but it's a microcosm of all the reasons why, you know, like people don't, you know, this is Denise Huskins is a blonde hair, blue-eyed white woman, right? You know, imagine, you know, person of color or somebody low socioeconomic status, or somebody that, you know, was maybe a sex worker, or, you know what I mean? Something like that. They, you know, may have, you know, been like, and just been completely dismissive of, you know, even though they were pretty dismissive of her.
Yeah.
So it's a big issue, and it really points out a big gap, I think, in the public perception, in our justice system and in beliefs in
Yeah.
victims of crime,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. It'd be nice if people are heard more. And do you feel like it's always safe to tell? And if there's a different system put up?
Yeah. And it's understandable. I know sometimes it's a he said, she said, or just there's not much evidence, but it doesn't mean that you should just say, oh, there's nothing we can do. At
Right.
least point to some resources or say, hey, maybe if this, then that, different things. I refuse to believe there's not like at least something that can be done other than saying, oh, we don't have any evidence, sorry. Or
Right.
we don't believe you, or let's charge you with a crime for
Right.
being kidnapped and raped, because that certainly is the least helpful of them all, putting
Right.
that mildly.
Right.
But yeah, so anything else that you want to add to that, to just kind of what happened in that case or the victimology of that?
I think we really talked about, I know this is kind of one of our shorter episodes, but I feel like we talked about a lot of what we wanted to say. We talked about a lot about what we wanted to talk about, but I think what we really wanted to express was how some people don't get hurt and how people are almost prejudging for like, okay, well, we've heard the story already, or we know what the outcome's going to be. Even how we were talking at the beginning, when I started watching the documentary, I hadn't heard anything about this couple. So I was like, oh gosh, what is this? This seems okay. So they're up to it. They planned everything. This is so dumb. So over the top with scuba divers or scuba gear. You just picture them like just sloshing through the house with their, it just seems so ridiculous. And that's what I was thinking. And then the more you hear, you're like, oh my God, this is horrific. And it's just real. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this poor girl, this poor guy. And it's just really, it was really sad. And I was very happy to hear, like, when I heard that they were able to sue and hopefully they moved out of that town and, just somewhere different and, they feel heard. And now, it just feels they hopefully can feel safe. I'm sure there's still the trauma and I'm sure they had PTSD and hopefully they went through therapy and counseling to help themselves, after such a traumatic event.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that they're going to have a lot to heal from, and not just from the crime inflicted on them, but from kind of the wrongdoings of the police department and the public opinion that was launched at them.
Yeah, because it's also, they're in a different, unique situation where it's not just, one or two people knowing what happened. Now all of a sudden it's the whole town, it's the whole country. When it was like being broadcast, I'm sure it was on like the different news channels, like about like that they were lying, and until they were able to clear their name, I think they even lost their jobs, and it was just it's probably very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, they went through an ordeal, and I'm glad they got redemption and they were able to speak on that. I saw them speaking, I think it was in the documentary at the end, where they were like, we said this happened and it happened. Like we weren't, we were able to be able to say, hey, we were telling the truth. And now you see it is something. So yeah, if you get a chance, if you're into this type of stuff, or if you're just curious about what we're talking about, it's called An American Nightmare on Netflix. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. You got something out of it. You can see how quickly things can, even we thought, oh, wow, this sounds really absurd. But at the same point, we're the public, they're the police. So keep that in mind when you're watching it.
Yeah, we didn't have all the evidence, or, or all of us as viewers, even as therapists, we're just watching it as like just people watching documentaries at first. And it's just, it's just really hard to fathom.
That's not how we would make a professional opinion, that's just what we were just thinking, so they certainly shouldn't have the police when they have all that at their disposal to investigate. But yeah, so let us know what you think. Don't forget to leave us comments. Let us know if you have suggestions for future episodes. We always love that. And don't forget to follow us. We are on Instagram, we're at Wicked Psychotherapists. On Facebook, we are The Wicked Psychotherapists. Subscribe and follow wherever you listen. Leave us a review. That always helps us. 5 stars helps us out the most. So if you can, that would be great. Yeah. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. Okay.
Yes. All right, guys. You take care. We'll see you next week.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Guys.